He barely spoke, just scanned barcodes, bagged items, and offered a polite nod that no one ever returned. The regulars joked about him, called him Silent Sam, said he looked like he'd fold in a gust of wind. That day, a group of off-duty officers made him their afternoon entertainment, mocked his silence, dared him to speak, until one of them caught the glint of something tucked behind the register, a faded military ID, and a sniper badge. The laughter stopped, because suddenly, they weren't looking at a clerk, they were looking at a ghost. The store didn't look like much. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, flickering every now and then like they were deciding whether to quit. Rows of canned beans, instant noodles, and bulk cat food lined metal shelves that had been dented by time and too many shopping carts. It wasn't a place people remembered fondly. It was where you went when the big chains were closed, or when you didn't want to be seen. The clerk worked the evening shift, always the evening shift, always the same quiet routine. He arrived 5 minutes before clock-in, carrying a black thermos and a book to warn to read its title. His name tag read Samuel, but no one ever called him that. Hey boss, hey guy, or just hey when a customer was feeling impatient. Samuel nodded when greeted, never spoke unless necessary. His voice was soft, so soft that people often leaned in only to walk away annoyed they'd bothered to ask. He wasn't young, but he wasn't old either, mid-40s maybe. Broad shoulders beneath a faded gray uniform shirt, clean-shaven, neatly kept. But his eyes were distant, not distracted, distant, like he was always somewhere else entirely, somewhere quieter or louder. Most of the regulars assumed something had broken him, maybe a messy divorce, maybe war, maybe prison. People liked to guess in places like this. It made the time pass faster while standing in line, behind someone counting coupons. But Samuel never confirmed or denied anything. He just scanned, bagged, handed over the receipt, and returned to his book. There were unspoken rules in this neighborhood. Don't ask questions if you don't want answers. Don't make eye contact if someone seems to still. Don't laugh too loudly in a store that smells like bleach and forgotten dreams. But that day, those rules were broken. It was a Thursday. The kind of Thursday that made people impatient with the weekend still too far to touch. The air outside was humid, heavy with a storm that hadn't arrived. Inside the store, the air was heavier with voices that didn't belong. 3 men walked in wearing tactical boots and boasting energy that didn't match the silence of the shop. Off-duty officers, clearly. You could tell by the walk, the way they moved, like every space belonged to them. Damn, this place still open. One of them laughed, only just, another said, nodding towards Samuel at the register. Our man here looks like he runs it on silence and sorrow. The third man grinned. Let's get our snacks and give the guy a reason to smile. They didn't come from this part of town. Their uniforms, though missing today, were from another district, the kind that held shinier precincts and cleaner streets. Here, they were tourists, armed with ego and too much time. Samuel didn't look up as they approached. He rang up a woman's bag of rice and pack of gum with the same gentle precision. She thanked him in her due. He nodded in return. You speak English, boss? One of the officers called out, not unkindly, but loud enough to be disrespectful. Or just read ancient texts all day. Samuel didn't respond, just handed the woman her receipt and turned to the next transaction. Cold, the officer muttered. Might be the coolest man I've ever seen. He's probably mute. Another said, bet he hasn't spoken since '98. That your sniper year, Sammy? The third one chuckled, leaning against the counter. Picked off your boss for making you work weekends. Still no response. The store manager, an older man named Mr. Ali, emerged briefly from the back to restock the cigarette cabinet. He gave Samuel a respectful nod. Samuel nodded back. Ali turned to the officers. Can I help you? We're good, the lead officer said. Just trying to make your guy here smile. Ali's eyes narrowed. Let him work. The officers bought beer and chips, items they shouldn't be purchasing in uniform. But they weren't in uniform. Just badges in their wallets and entitlement in their bones. As Samuel scanned their items, one of them leaned over the counter, trying to catch a glimpse of the book beside the register. Watch a reading, Sam. Samuel said nothing. I bet it's about assassins, the officer said, nudging his "Friend, assassins don't bag groceries," the third laughed. "They get medals and disappear into some mountain." That's when they saw it, the glint. Just a flicker of light catching on something beneath the counter. One of them leaned over, then froze. "Wait." A beat of silence. "What is that?" The others turned, followed his eyes. Tucked just under the register drawer was a worn black leather wallet, its edge cracked and softened from years of use. Peeking from it was a card, military issue, and pinned above it on a thin piece of velvet, a badge, a sniper's badge. Old school, issued for confirmed marks, not ceremony, not dress uniform fluff. It looked real. Too real. The silence deepened. Samuel didn't look up. He just scanned the last item, barbecue-flavored sunflower seeds, and tapped the total on the screen. $19.42, he said, his voice even and steady. The men didn't move. One finally reached for his wallet. "You, military?" Samuel didn't answer. Mr. Ollie reappeared again, this time with a mop. He paused, glanced at the counter, then said softly, "He was, long ago." One of the officers whispered, "Which unit?" Samuel's eyes met his, just for a moment, not with anger, not with pride, but with something colder, measured, final. "Doesn't matter anymore," he said. The officer swallowed. "You were a sniper." Samuel didn't nod, didn't confirm. He turned to the receipt printer and waited. They paid in silence. No more jokes, no more laughter. They took their bags and left, stepping into the thick, storm-ready air like it might wash something off of them. Inside the store, the lights still flickered. The hum returned. Samuel returned to his book. A child entered a few moments later with $1 and a question about candy. Samuel smiled gently. "Second shelf, left side." The child beamed and ran toward the aisle. Behind the counter, the sniper badge remained tucked away, barely visible. A relic, a warning, a reminder, and Samuel returned to silence. Not broken, not ashamed, just waiting for the storm. The days after the incident passed quietly on the surface, but a shift had occurred. Not just within the store, but within the people who came and went. The off-duty officers never returned, not in uniform or civilian clothes. Mr. Ollie didn't ask why. He didn't need to. The silence they left behind was louder than any apology they could have offered. But silence, too, has weight. Word traveled, slowly at first, through whispers exchanged in line, in murmurs over tea in the back of the mosque, in the low thrum of curiosity between neighbors who'd always seen Samuel as a fixture rather than a man. Suddenly, the quiet clerk had a past. He was in the military, you know, one woman told her husband, unloading lentils onto the counter. "Special unit," the husband replied, lowering his voice. "Did tours overseas, maybe even classified missions. Someone said he saved children. Someone else said he was abandoned after an injury." Each version of the story grew taller, sharper, and more dramatic, while Samuel stayed exactly the same. But the myth of him was no longer his to control. What had once been a bubble of peaceful anonymity was now a fog of speculation. Customers watched him more closely. Some spoke to him with a new reverence, forced, performative gratitude that sat heavy in the air. Others avoided eye contact entirely, unsure how to act now that they knew he was more than he appeared. It wasn't what Samuel wanted. "Boss," said Cream, the young man on the morning shift, "you ever think about doing interviews, like veterans do sometimes?" Samuel shook his head. Nothing to say. Cream nodded. He admired Samuel, the way young men often admire older men who say little but seem to have seen too much. But admiration is its own kind of pressure. The neighborhood had begun to treat Samuel like a relic, sacred, fragile, unknowable. Then came the letter. It was folded carefully, delivered by hand from a woman in a pantsuit who didn't smile. She asked for Samuel by name, pronounced with bureaucratic precision. "I'm with the precinct," she said. "We're organizing an award ceremony for community veterans. We'd like to honor you, a formal commendation." Samuel blinked slowly. "No, it's not optional." She added gently, "We have paperwork from the department. You've been flagged as unrecognized. They're correcting the oversight." Samuel's fingers tightened on the edge of the counter. Mr. Ollie stepped in, sensing the tension. "If he says no, that's enough. She didn't argue, just left the envelope and walked out, heels clicking against tile like clock hands running out. That night, Samuel sat in the break room, staring at the letter. It wasn't the ceremony that disturbed him, it was the idea that someone had dug him up, that his records, once buried and ignored, had resurfaced for the sake of some PR event. He'd left the military without applause, no medals, no salutes, just discharge papers and a flight home. That was the deal he accepted, to bring the war back inside himself and keep it there. The neighborhood thought they were doing him a kindness, but they didn't know what they were celebrating. By the end of the week, a local reporter showed up, young, awkward, and full of misplaced passion. She knocked on the store's side entrance. Before opening hours, "Mr. Samuel," she said, camera slung over her shoulder. "I'm doing a human interest piece. Everyone says you're a hero." "I'm not," he said. "Well, I'd still like to hear your story. It might help people, young people, veterans, even just people who feel forgotten." Samuel looked at her, long enough for her to shift her stance. "My story isn't mine anymore," he said. "It belongs to people who didn't come back. That's why I keep it quiet." He closed the door, gently, but it wasn't enough to stop the movement. Flyers appeared in windows. "Honor our local hero Veterans Day ceremony, Friday at 6 p.m. A photo of Samuel's face cropped poorly from CCTV sat beneath the text. He hadn't posed for it. He hadn't given permission. Mr. Ali took the flyer down from the front window the next day and handed it to Samuel. "They mean well," Ali said quietly, "but they don't understand the difference between honoring someone and using them." Samuel didn't reply. He didn't go to the ceremony. But that choice's quiet refusal sparked something larger. A local activist group posted online, criticizing the city for forcing recognition without consent. Others accused Samuel of being ungrateful. A whisper campaign grew in corners of the internet. Was he really a sniper? Was it all staged? If he's so honorable, why is he hiding? The most painful attacks came from within the community, people who had once respected his silence, but now demanded he perform gratitude, perform trauma, perform redemption. "People fought for your freedom," one man shouted as Samuel exited the store one night. "I fought too," Samuel replied, voice low. "Then act like it." The confrontation made it onto local news. The clip went viral not because of violence, but because of Samuel's silence in the face of humiliation. Again, the public projected meaning onto him. Some saw nobility, others saw arrogance. Everyone saw what they wanted. The second mid-roll point could land here. The moment where Samuel is publicly confronted and goes viral. Just before the emotional turning point. But for Samuel, the real pain came not from strangers but from the children. A school teacher had shown her class the flyer, wanting to inspire them. A few days later, a group of kids entered the store with pencils and notepads. "Are you the soldier man?" one asked. Samuel froze. "My brother says you used to shoot people from a mile away." The boy made finger gun noises, laughed. Samuel didn't. He stepped from behind the register, kneeled to the boy's height. "Listen to me," he said, voice steady. "War is not brave. War is not a game. Don't let anyone tell you it's something to be proud of. I did what I had to do, but it's not something I want you to copy. Not ever." The boy blinked, then slowly nodded. The other children shuffled away. Later, Mr. Ali said quietly, "That's the most you've ever spoken to anyone here." Samuel nodded. "And maybe the most I ever should." But the damage was done. The flyer, the clip, the ceremony, all had turned his quiet life into spectacle. One evening, a letter appeared on the register. No stamp, no address, just folded and placed by someone unknown. Inside, 2 words, "Thank you." Samuel stared at it for a long time, then folded it again and placed it next to his badge. It happened just after closing. The lights buzzed overhead in their usual tired rhythm as Samuel went through the routine of locking up. The register drawer clicked, receipts were tallied, and the mop leaned tiredly in the corner as if it, too, had seen enough. Mr. Ali had gone home early to attend a family gathering. Kareem had left 2 hours before, mumbling about rain and romance. That left Samuel alone in the hum of the store's dying day. Folding cardboard boxes behind the counter, The bell above the door jingled once, sharply. Samuel looked up. She was older now. Her hair was pulled back, silver strands woven into a neat bun. Her coat was clean but plain, and her boots had seen better days. She walked like someone who had carried something heavy for a long time and had never put it down. Samuel straightened slowly. For a few seconds, neither spoke. The silence was its own language. Then she said his name, not Sam, not Boss, not Guy. She said it fully. Sergeant Samuel Vance. His breath caught just slightly. Not because she'd found him, but because of the way she said it. Like it wasn't a title. Like it was a memory. He took a step forward. Eva, her eyes softened. So, it's really you. He nodded, quiet. The tension in the air was thick, not from hostility but history. A past that neither had expected to see reflected in fluorescent light. Surrounded by shelves of crackers and detergent, she reached into her coat and pulled out a folded paper creased 1,000 times. Edges worn like it had been held and refolded on every train, bus, and breath between then and now. Samuel hesitated before taking it. He opened it carefully. It was a photo, faded, torn at one corner, taken in the sandstorms of another life. 5 people stood in the frame, dust-covered, half smiling, half exhausted. A fire pit in the background. Camouflage uniforms. A broken guitar. Samuel stared at the man beside him in the photo. David. Ava's brother. He used to talk about you like you were invincible, she said. Her voice trembling slightly. Said you could hit a target blindfolded. But what he respected more was that you never took the shot unless you had to. Samuel's fingers gripped the photo. After he died, she continued, the letters stopped. No one from the unit ever reached out. I filed inquiries, got silence. I thought you were gone too. I was, Samuel said softly. Not in the way you think. But I was. She stepped closer. Why didn't you come back? Samuel's voice was steady now. Because coming back meant pretending I hadn't failed him. I was his spotter that day, my call. My mistake. Her eyes welled but didn't fall. He wasn't a mission. He was a human being. He knew the risk. That's not failure, Sam. Samuel looked away. Tell that to his last breath. Eva placed a hand on the counter. She wasn't trying to convince him. She was trying to understand the silence that had stretched between them for a decade. The city made you a symbol, she said, but they never saw you. I didn't either. Not until I realized what it cost you to disappear. Samuel folded the photo again and handed it back, but she didn't take it. It's yours, she said. He'd want you to have it. He used to say that when the noise got too loud, you were the only one who knew how to stay still. A long silence followed. Samuel finally spoke. Stillness isn't peace, no. She agreed. But it's the place peace starts from, outside. The rain had begun a quiet patter on the storefront glass. Eva looked around. This where you'll stay, for now, he said. It's honest work. She smiled. That. It is. Then, reaching into her pocket, she took out a small envelope, this one hand addressed. No logos, no ceremony. I wasn't supposed to bring this, but he wrote it. Just in case. Samuel took the envelope slowly. The name on it was scrawled, to Vance if he makes it. He didn't open it right away. Eva looked at the sniper badge tucked under. The register. I'm not here to pull you back, she said. I just wanted you to know. You're not the ghost people think you are. You're still breathing, and you still matter. Even in silence, she turned to leave. At the door, she paused. You saved my brother's life more than once. The fact that he didn't make it. The last time doesn't erase that. Then she was gone. Samuel stood alone, envelope in hand. He opened it. Inside was a short note, just 3 lines, handwritten, smudged in the corners. If you're reading this, I didn't make it. I hope you're not punishing yourself. Tell the world something for me. Still waters run deep, and some men carry oceans. Samuel sat down slowly behind the counter. For the first time in years, he wept, not for guilt, not for shame, but for the release of a silence that had grown. Too wide, too heavy. He didn't need the city's ceremony. He didn't need their flyer. But maybe, just maybe, he didn't need to hide anymore either. The next morning, the store opened like any other. The air smelled faintly of lemons from last night's mop water. The radio in the back hummed something old and familiar, jazz. Maybe Samuel stood at the counter with the same worn book and the same quiet posture. But something had changed. It wasn't visible to most. Not in his stance, not in his speech. But Mr. Ali noticed it the moment he arrived. "You look taller," he said casually, setting a crate of bottled water behind the counter. Samuel didn't respond with words, just a glance, a knowing one. The envelope from Eva still sat in his pocket. He hadn't needed to reread the letter. It lived in him now, every line of it, not as a burden but as permission. Permission to breathe without shame, to exist without armor. The badge remained beneath the register, but it no longer felt like a secret, just a part of him. Like the scar beneath his collar or the slight limp in his left knee, evidence, not identity. The customers came in as they always did. They nodded. He nodded back, but the weight of their gaze had softened. Maybe because Samuel was no longer trying to disappear beneath it. Kareem showed up halfway through the shift, eyes bright. "Boss, you won't believe it, they took your picture off the flyers." Samuel raised an eyebrow. "Eva did it," Kareem said. "She called the council, told them you hadn't consented. Said it wasn't a memorial because you're still here." Samuel smirked, just slightly. "She always had a mouth on her." "Who is she?" "Family," he said after a pause. "The kind war makes." That afternoon, something even stranger happened. A man walked in mid-50s, clean-cut, wearing a department-issued jacket. Not one of the men from that Thursday, not loud, not smirking, just present. He stood in line like everyone else, holding only a pack of batteries. When he reached the counter, he didn't speak right away. Then he said, quietly, "Sergeant Vance." Samuel looked up slowly. "Don't use that name lightly." "I'm not," the man replied. "I served Afghanistan, 04 to 06. Samuel studied him, then gave a subtle nod. "I just wanted to say." The man continued, "I saw the clip, the one outside the store. I didn't like how they treated you. You did right by staying quiet, by walking away." Samuel handed him the receipt. "Some medals weigh more than they shine," the man added. "Some wars don't end," Samuel said. "But some do," the man countered. "Eventually, when someone chooses peace." He left without another word, and Samuel stood still for a moment longer than usual. That evening, he did something he hadn't done in over a decade. He walked to the nearby park long after sunset. When most had gone home, the benches were damp from the evening dew, and the sky above was cracked open with stars. He sat down, not to reflect, not to grieve, just to sit. The city moved around him, cars passing, dogs barking, teenagers laughing somewhere in the distance, but none of it touched him. For once, he was just a man on a bench, not a soldier, not a ghost, not a symbol. When he returned to the store the next day, he brought something new with him, a photo frame. The one Eva had given him, the faded picture of the 5 soldiers. By the fire pit now sat behind the counter, facing inward. Not for the world to see, just for him. Kareem noticed it first. "That your old unit?" Samuel nodded. "Yeah, they look happy." "Sometimes we were." Kareem lowered his voice. "Thanks for trusting me enough to share that." Samuel looked at him. "Thanks for never asking until now." The final shift of that week was uneventful. No reporters, no flyers, no ceremonies. Just customers, just groceries, just life moving on. But as the sun dipped behind the buildings, and the store lights cast long, sleepy shadows across the tile floor, one last customer stepped in, a young boy, no older than 8. The same boy from before, the one with the finger gun questions. He approached the counter with a comic book and $1. Samuel rang it up. As the boy reached for his change, he looked up and asked, "Do you still read old books?" Samuel smiled. "Every day." "Why?" Samuel paused. "Because some stories teach you how to come home." The boy thought about that for a moment, then nodded seriously, like he understood something deeper than he could explain. He left the store. Quietly, comic tucked under his arm like treasure, Samuel turned back to the counter. The register hummed, the lights buzzed. The mop leaned in the corner, but he didn't feel small anymore. He didn't feel invisible. He just felt present, and sometimes that's all a man needs. Not a parade, not an apology, just the right to stand in his own silence respected. Some stories don't need to be shouted, they just need to be heard. Samuel never asked to be honored, and he didn't need applause. What he needed was space. Space to carry his past without judgment. Space to choose dignity over spectacle. In a world that often mistakes volume for value, his quiet strength reminds us that true courage is sometimes found in silence, in stillness, in choosing peace over pride. If this story moved you, take a moment to reflect not on the wars we see, but on the ones we never ask about. Comment below with one word that honors what Samuel stood for, something like word or respect, and share this with someone who understands that sometimes the loudest battles leave no sound at all. Thank you for listening, truly listening to a quiet truth, finally told.